Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to what's going to be the first of a series of tutorial videos about how to play Europa Universalis 4. I'm going to try to keep these short and sweet. I'm trying to get these under 5 minutes because I think the most effective is when the video is really short and we can really get some good information in about how to play the game and not draw the video out for too long. So I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible. Today we're basically just going to do a brief overview about how really to kind of just play this game. And there's a lot to cover, a lot of stuff we could talk about, but we're just going to do a brief overview of really what your goal is in the game. So we're starting as the Ottomans here, arguably the most powerful nation in the game, aside from Ming, as over here, basically Ming is China. But the Ottomans are basically the most powerful nation in the game when you start off. You don't have to play as the Ottomans. You play as France or England or Castile, but it is recommended that you play as the Ottomans just because you have a big army, big navy, and you have a lot of weak neighbors, so you can kind of pick on. You can really get your expansion going pretty quick. So, speaking of expansion, which is kind of the object of this game, is to expand, conquer as much territory as possible, and increase the power of your nation. So there are plenty of different ways to expand. The easiest and most obvious way is to simply conquer territory. So we see this province right here, Constantinople, owned by Byzantium, and we want to take it for ourselves. So we could just go in and declare war, but as you can see, we get all these negative penalties, which we'll talk about aggressive expansion of war exhaustion and stability later. But you know, you don't want to just go around declaring wars with no casus belli. This is called a no casus belli war, and we could do it, but we don't want to do that because that's not going to be good for our nation. So what we want to do is go down here to covert actions, go to build a spy network, and we're going to wait for our spy network to complete building so we can fabricate claims on Byzantium. So I'm going to press spacebar. I'm going to put the speed at 5. My computer's not terribly fast, but that should get the job done. And we will wait for the spy network to start building. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for the spy network to build, let's start going over some of the features kind of on the interface. So as you can see, we have these ribbons up here. Green ribbon means low priority. Red ribbon means high priority. So if there's a red ribbon, you really want to take a look at that. So we do need to pick some rivals. Rivals as the Ottomans, they're not terribly important. So, you know, I mean, we could pick. Let's just pick these three. We'll talk about rivals a little bit later. But just for now, we're just going to pick these three because we're close to these nations. So we picked, you know, England, Lithuania, Hungary. Again, as a powerful nation like the Ottomans, doesn't matter terribly who your rivals are. But we'll get to that later. So we covered the ribbons. So first here we got our treasury. So your income, your money. This is how you train troops, how you build ships, how you build province upgrades. So buildings, you do need money for that. Money is very important. Moving on, manpower, pretty self-explanatory. Basically, how many troops you can train, and how many troops you can reinforce to your already standing army. So that's manpower. Sailors, it's basically manpower, but it's sea. You need sailors to build and reinforce ships. Stability, this is somewhat of a complicated feature, but not too difficult to understand. If stability's high, generally if stability's high, you're going to get a low amount of rebels, and if stability's low, you're going to get a high amount of rebels. So you definitely want to keep stability high. Corruption, want to keep that low. Corruption's going to increase your technology costs, which we don't want our technology costs to be too high, so we definitely need to keep our corruption low. Prestige, not terribly important. Prestige is not the most important thing in the world, but you do want to keep an eye on it. It does give you some nice army morale bonus. But of all these, prestige is not terribly important. It's very hard to control. Legitimacy, very important. Want to keep that high, so there's just a lot of different positive modifiers you get from keeping your legitimacy high. So want to keep that high. We'll talk about that later. Power projection, again, want to keep that high. Not terribly important, but there are plenty of things you can do to keep that high. I'm looking up here, so we have merchants. Merchants is how you steer trade. Trade takes a long time to talk about, so we'll discuss that in a different video, but we have merchants here. We have colonists. We're not going to be using any colonists because we're the Ottomans, who aren't a colonizing nation, but if you are a colonizing nation, you're going to want to have a couple colonists at your disposal. Diplomats, pretty important. Diplomats is just how you communicate with other nations. So Hungary, currently our rival, if we wanted to offer them an alliance, which they're not going to take, but if we wanted to, offer them an alliance or improve our relations or insult or basically any of these diplomatic features we would want to That's what our diplomats are for. Missionaries, so if we wanted to convert provinces, so as you can see, we have all these, go to our religion map mode, we have all these provinces that are not our home religion. We would use a missionary to convert that. Going on to monarch points here. Monarch points are probably the most important thing we'll learn about today. Monarch points is basically your bread and butter. That's kind of your lifeline. That's how you're going to do really, really well in Europa Universalis 4. You need to have a lot of monarch points because you use monarch points for upgrading technology, picking national ideas, increasing stability, increasing our government strength, and developing provinces. You can see here we develop provinces and provincial development. Very, very important. So as you can see, we have 333. So we'll get into detail about those later. But basically, just for now, just know that 3 plus 3 plus 3, 3, 6, 9. This province has 9 development. So if we wanted to increase our development, which would give us bonuses from the province, we would want to spend monarch. We'd have to spend monarch points to do that. So basically, monarch points are like the most versatile of anything up here. Very important to have good monarch points. You get monarch points by going to our leader here. So we got the Sultan. He's a 646. Okay, so max would be 666 across the board. That's like a max monarch. You can't have anything higher than 6. So our Sultan is pretty good. We have a very good monarch at the moment. If we go up here to England and check out their monarch, they have King Henry here is 000. So that's terrible. That's like the worst monarch ever. Okay, so having a good king is important. Having a good monarch is important. Or if you're a republic, having a good president is important. That's how you're going to get your monarch points. Another way to get monarch points is going over here to our advisors. We could hire an advisor, which would give us an extra one a month. We could hire an advisor to help us out with our monarch points. All right, continuing. Let's go to the production interface. We've already talked about, we could build upgrades. Trained troops are over here. Building ships are over here. Development, we've already looked at that. We'll look at some of these other stuff later. But the important ones are training troops, training boats, and making buildings for now. We'll talk about some of this other stuff later. Let's go over to the map modes. We have a few different ones. We have political. This is the one you're going to want to be on for most of the game because it gives you the best picture of like who controls what. Got terrain. I don't really use that very much, but you can if you want. Trade, we'll talk about that later. Imperial, that shows you the Holy Roman Empire. Religion shows you what the religions are. Coalitions, we'll talk about that later. Institutions, we'll talk about that later. Development, we were already kind of talking about that. Technology, this shows how up to date in technology we are. So we're 333. Everybody's 333 at the moment, so we're all even for now. And then trade goods, we'll talk about that later as well. Basically, you can customize this any way you want. So if you want to, if you don't want development there in your like quick map select mode, you can go here and just pick a different one. So let's say I wanted to look at religious leagues and have that on standby. We could just key it in there and switch it if ever we want. Okay, cool. And then finally, everything else looks good. We go to the ledger here, just see some information about the nations. Pretty easy stuff. I mean, you'll definitely learn this. It'll just come with experience. Okay, so that's pretty much the basics of the interface and how the game works. We'll come back to you guys next episode and talk about this war we're actually going to have with Byzantium once our spy network gets built. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.